Thank you so much for joining us again. I can't tell you enough how much in this entire team, the district, the board appreciates this commitment. I know it's another 3 nights in a row that we're here, and it's a beautiful, beautiful evening, so I can't thank you enough for committing to the future of this district and committing to planning for a plan that's going to impact all of our families in the district. I can't thank you enough. Lucky for you, no additional presentations tonight. Josh promised he's going to get right up, get right to these options with the goal at 8 o'clock, narrowing these down so we have a better idea of what we want to propose to the school board next month. So thanks again, Josh.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Jim. Echo, thank you all for coming back, right? We talked about the fact that continuity is so important in this process, right? Because what you're going to save me from doing is going through all of these slides about the schedule and all this other stuff, right? We've already talked about all this. Our goal is that we're going to make a recommendation to the board at the December board meeting. So for all of you that showed up tonight, I need you again, December 5th, right? And we're having that one here as well. No, high school. High school next time. Okay. Kurt, no, high school next time. Thank you. All right, thanks. That's my team that I told to go to the high school tonight. We're headed towards the December board meeting. So tonight, what I'm going to present to you is we have 10 master plan options. And so as you look at where you're at, we've got 5 stations, which means each station is going to get 2 master plan options, and you're going to fight over them.
Oh, I love fighting.
It's going to be fun. We have an exercise called this or that, okay? So we're going to do that tonight. So I'm also going to break all of you up. So I'm going to split up families, I'm going to split up staff. We're all going to move around. So hopefully you didn't fall in love with the chair if you're sitting in. School Finance 101 from the last meeting. Any questions from that presentation? Did anybody have anything that came up? If you have a question that you want to ask, Mark is somewhere in the back. Back here. Back there. So if something comes up, if you come up with something or you had something that you wrote down that you didn't understand, Mark is here tonight, so please bug him. Let's talk for a second about what happened on Tuesday. And I don't want to talk about the president. School issues did not do well for the second election. Okay? Second election in a row, we've had school issues. For those of you who don't remember, back in March, there were 7 total school issues that passed. Right? Those are bond issues of new or renovated school projects. This time, if I saw the numbers, I think it was a 50% passage rate. So that says on there 34% passage rate. So 11 out of 32. Not much better. Just a reminder, we as a team were talking about the possibility of going on in November of this year. So I think it was a good thing we didn't. Because folks, I think, are still sort of dealing with this idea of reevaluations and what do my property taxes look like, and people are trying to understand what that impact is, right? So just a heads up that what this really means to us is there are going to be a lot of issues on in May of next year. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think we still have to stay focused locally as to what other issues might be impacting your district. But I think it was a good thing, obviously, for us not to be on the November election. We're going to continue to monitor. We're going to continue to learn more about why people voted the way that they did, why they voted down school issues, if it was a communication issue, if it was just strictly a money issue, or what it was. Again, I think this puts emphasis on all of us understanding what the story is that we're trying to tell the community. All right, please.
Not necessarily the Finance 101, but you said communication and like whether or not that was an issue. I know we have the website, which kind of articulates the process that we've been through, where we are now, where we're headed. Do we have any analytics in terms of how many people are actually utilizing that site for the information? Because I feel like in meetings, PTO meetings and things, there still seems to be not a lot of awareness about the process, and I'm concerned that if we're not transparent now, I feel like that word actually popped up today on the community forum, that if we're not transparent about things that are occurring, I don't want to catch someone off the blind side, and then that's when feelings come out, I feel like. So.
Sure. I appreciate that. So yes, we do have the ability to analyze how many people are kind of going to the website and checking it out, how many people are going to the district website. So yes, we do have that ability. I think what you'll see from us is as we get closer to understanding what our master plan options are, with the sort of 2 or 3 that we're really focusing in on for this last meeting, I think when we get there, that's when we're going to double our efforts, right, to get a little bit more broader with our communication. It's really kind of hard at this point to do anything more than just say, hey, we're going through this process,
Sure.
right? Because it's really hard to sort of go through the details and there are nuances of the 10 options that we sort
Yeah.
of are looking at.
I was just curious the reach
appreciate
that the
that.
site was getting in terms of traffic
Yeah.
there.
I'll add, I get it every, like, I think we get an update every Monday morning or Sunday night for the week. Typically, after tonight, when we upload everything from tonight's meeting and share tomorrow, like, it'll be big traffic this weekend and it just slowly decreases over the next couple of weeks until we have another meeting, and then it goes all back up.
You say big traffic, what is that?
Like more, like, I would say right now, like, it's hard because some of it's bot traffic, like, not a real person, and some of it is actual visitors to the site. I would say anywhere, on a normal slow week, it's probably close to 100, and then visitors, and then on weeks like this, it can get up to like 500 to 600. It just depends on the week and how many other people are sharing out the link and the information.
Okay, good points, good conversation.
Josh, we had another question.
Yes, oh, please.
I was just curious how many people are going to our, like, the district social pages versus the site. That was,
Yeah. Jody, would-
And then to echo Katie's comment or question, has it been in our like mail newsletter out too? Has that been? I can't remember.
We've included information about the process in the newsletter too, right?
Yeah, it goes out, like, it'll be in tomorrow's district e-newsletter to all the families. Each meeting is also on the district website, and it's linked to Elevate Alder as well. So.
But the community one, the one that you send out to the entire,
So we haven't done any printed ones, and we only do 2 a year now. So that one, the first printed one for this year won't be out until the end of the second quarter. So we're just doing second quarter, fourth quarter kind of stuff.
Good conversation and good points that we need to continue to focus on. So appreciate that. And again, just looking at the overall calendar, right, the big calendar, one of the things that we had discussed was the possibility of looking at November 2024. So I feel confident that it was a wise decision for us to wait and again give ourselves the time that we need in order to do this master plan. All right, so I want to very quickly go remind you of a little exercise we did at the very first community advisory team meeting, which was the community values exercise. We didn't talk about the results of this at the last meeting because we had so many exercises that we were doing as teams. So we'll go through this very quickly because we're going to use this tonight as a way of sort of a lens, if you will, of the exercise that we're going to do. So just a reminder, remember you guys all took this survey, all of you that were here. There were 4 questions. Who are our top competitors? How would we like to be described as a community? What school facility improvements are top of mind regarding athletics, academics, performing arts, etc.? And how do we continue to build trust and confidence? So speaking of AI, Kevin Blank in our office took all of your information and dumped it in, and it spit out all these beautiful graphics of all these different summaries of exactly what information you guys sort of put out there. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time digging into these. I want you guys, if you can, look at them on the website, right? I'm not overly focused tonight on who our competitors are. I do like sort of looking at I love the thematic phrases, right? This is AI, sort of making something flowery. Thematic phrases. Rampant development. Districts with athletic facilities, larger school districts, higher futures. Then we went to the second one, how would we like to be described as a community? I thought this was an important one, and I do think that we need to look at this one as we're talking about the things that we're doing tonight. I think a lot of these make sense, right? I think they're kind of givens, if you will. The safety and being welcoming, family-oriented, strong values, innovation and progress, I thought, forward thinking, I thought that was a good one. Student-focused, excellent school district. I think all of these are really valuable for us, and I think as we're looking at master plan options tonight, it's good for us to keep these in mind. So I'm going to put this slide back up when you guys are working on the master plans. Okay, so I want you to come back to this. What school facility improvements are top of mind? So tonight we're going to start this conversation about what we call local funded initiatives, right? Which is stuff that you as a district may do outside of working with the commission in this co-funded project. We're going to start that conversation tonight. We'll finish it at the next meeting. But we're going to go through this list in a little bit more detail at the next meeting as we start to talk about some of the other impacts of the master plan. So for instance, if we're thinking about a new high school, which has been one of the things that's been kicking around us there, not only is there a land purchase issue, there's also a proximity issue. If we can't get land in and around the high school site, and we're thinking about building a new high school, and it's going someplace else, we're also building a new stadium, right? Or we're sending the kids all the way back to the existing stadium, which is busing and all those other things that we don't love. So we will talk about performing arts impact, right? What would it be for us to add an auditorium to the high school? We will discuss that as an LFI. It'll be one that we discuss at the next meeting. But we're going to talk about that globally in the overall cost impact. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. And then, so there were more here. Sorry, it's the second slide of school facility improvements, advanced academics, life skills, practical learning, STEM, hands-on. There were some questions that came out in the last meeting that I do want to address, and I'll get to that here in a second, but it sort of ties back to some of these key themes. I'll come back to that. Again, third slide, community spaces, parent and family support, miscellaneous parking, accessibility, district office. So there's a lot of stuff there. And then number 4, key themes of thinking about how do we continue to build trust. It was all about, communication, obviously. Transparency and communication, just like we started this conversation tonight about. Community engagement. So we're going to continue to keep an eye on these. Follow through, I thought was great, right? That's a really strong key theme. Consistency and clarity. So I think these are great. As I mentioned before, we're going to come back to that. How do we want to be seen as a community slide as we're going through this master plan option piece. Let me see what I'm dropping here. Okay, so at the last meeting, there were some questions from a couple of different people. I heard probably from four or five different people who said, hey, when we're talking about these new facilities or these additions to our facilities or whatever that might look like, or even renovations to any of our buildings, how do we have confidence that when we're talking about that we're talking about sort of future-focused spaces, right? How do we know that these budgets are going to support us being able to do, the collaborative spaces that we've talked about not being able to do today, or thinking about the types of flexible spaces for our students in the future. And so what I want to sort of give you the confidence of is that when I'm putting these budgets together and when I'm talking about the square footage of any of these facilities, I'm building that in, right? That's just kind of baked into the sauce, if you will. And so when we're starting to talk about this, and I'll go into even more sort of examples at the next meeting, we're thinking about being able to support these types of flexible spaces. The challenge that we're in right now is that we're in master planning. We're way up here, right? So I'm talking about 100,000 square foot facility, and what we're concerned about is making sure that we can create a learning community that's got that flexibility that we want. So when we're thinking way up here, we're making sure that that's baked in. And so you're going to see that I'll show you even more examples of great new high schools and great new middle school spaces. And we'll talk about those at the next meeting. But when I talk about a facility that's 100,000 square feet for a new middle school and it's $400 a square foot, that expectation is baked into that, right? You're going to get a building that is of the quality of what Jonathan Alder has expected in the past, but it's also got that flexible learning space and that ability to be programmed to be flexible for the future. Okay, so we'll talk more about that, and then obviously we're going to discuss, the possibility of other spaces. So again, when we're pricing up auditoriums, I'm going to be pricing up an auditorium that is appropriate for a high school performance space. So when we talk about that kind of thing, we're talking about flexible dining spaces and performance spaces and arts and music spaces. All of those kinds of things are going to be there. And also, when we talk about doing athletics and think about what athletics improvements are going to be, we have the ability to price those up, and I feel confident that we'll get a good number that's going to get you the level of quality that you're looking for. Okay? So just expect that that's baked into the number when we talk about these things. We've hit on this slide at the last couple of meetings. We're going to talk about a couple of things tonight. The master planning drivers, why are we doing this? Again, it started with educational delivery, and it's changing, and it's affecting the types of spaces that we need in the buildings. We've talked about the enrollment increasing. I'm not going to touch on that much tonight because I think we beat that into the ground. And then the last piece, the facility improvements costs are increasing. We had a long conversation at CAT 2 about why isn't the school district just kind of doing this out of general fund, right? Why don't we just go buy a middle school? We got all this money in the bank, let's just go do it. We took a look just at a really high level at sort of expectation of what the next 10 years for the district could be of their existing facilities. And just as a reminder, there was that wave of construction and renovation that took place in the early 2000s, right? And all of that stuff is now at that 20-year lifespan, 20-plus lifespan, and it's at that lifespan where our roof warranty that was 20 years, that got you 20 years worth of a roof warranty is now up. HVAC equipment, we've got HVAC equipment that typically 15 to 20 years, if it's really well maintained, 25 to 30 for boilers and chillers and those kinds of things. But we're getting to that point where the equipment needs maintenance, where there's certain pieces of equipment that are going to need to be replaced. So when we looked at that, we just took a really high level look at sort of the three biggest categories, the ones that are usually the biggest culprits as far as dollars are concerned. And that's roofing, HVAC, and site. And you don't think about it, but site is a huge cost. Every time that this district repaves a parking lot, we're repaving hundreds of parking spaces. So think about all the pavement that's out at the high school. Typically, a lot gets installed, you get about roughly 5 to 7 years out of it, you gotta put a seal coat on it. Then if you can get 10 years, that would be fantastic, but then you gotta come in and mill and fill it, you take the top 1.5 inches off, you put another 1.5 inches on top of it. Eventually, you can only mill and fill until it starts to break down underneath, and once the base starts to break down, you gotta replace all of it. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So every time that you think, oh, parking lot's starting to look a little dated, that's when you're starting to think about those types of improvements. So site costs can be really expensive. So when you look at these, just looking at those three categories and looking sort of 10 years into the future, the district's going to be, it needs to be planning for upwards of $28 million of just permanent improvements, general maintenance. And this is typical of every school district in the state of Ohio that has buildings the ages that yours are.
Is that today's money?
That is today's money and not inflated. So it's going to get worse, right? And we would expect, anywhere from 3 to 5% a year to be added onto that. This would be as if we were going to replace all these things today. So, and again, you can take a look at the ages, right? The high school was 2005. This building was 55 and 65, and there was a renovation in 2003. Canaan Middle School, last time it was touched was significantly was 2004. Monroe was 2004. Plain City Elementary opened in 2008. And then 340 West Main, we're not going to maintain that much longer. So, any questions about that before I jump on? Just wanted to touch base on that because we did discuss it at the last meeting. It's part of this follow-up. Okay. All right. We've talked about our capacities, right? We discussed our elementaries and the fact that our 10-year projection is going to have us effectively at capacity or over capacity at every one of our facilities by the end of that projection. So if we do nothing other than just replace the junior high building, we're going to have issues at Monroe and Plain City, and we're going to have issues at Canaan, we're going to have issues at the high school at the end of our 10-year projection. So, I think I'm ready to start this exercise. Are you guys ready to get up and do some stuff? Yes, please. Yes.
So before we do that, you talked about finding another site for a potential high school if we can't buy land around the current high school and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, haven't we already had conversations with Roby and with the Real to own all that property, and those aren't options at this point?
That's correct.
Okay, so when we're going through the exercise, we
Cost that was discussed, correct?
That would be something that the district would have to fill us in on as far as the last conversations.
We have multiple conversations with those two farmers on either side for a year worth of conversations, offers, all the way up to let's have conversations about the amount that a developer would give you, and they're not interested.
okay, so it's not an option, right?
It is not an option.
Not to be adjacent to the high school.
That's what I'm saying. though.
That's
Because
why
we're talking right there.
Yeah, that's why I was saying an off-site location.
Yeah, but I wanted people in the room to know that that's already happened, and those two spots on either side are not an option today. Fair? Because if we're
That's
planning
probably
on-
that would be our number one option, but it's off the table.
Yeah, all right, thanks for the clarity.
Yep, and so something that I want to discuss, because we still have two master plan options that look at potentially the new high school. That we are going to, when we get done with this process, we're going to have a master plan option that we'll recommend to the board that will get us so far, right? Whatever that is, 10 years, 15 years into the future, further if we can. There's going to be another phase someday, right? And that other phase someday might be replacing the high school or building a new high school. And so I don't want to lose sight of that, because there's value in having that conversation now, because it may be that the recommendation that we make is, here's the master plan recommendation that we believe gets us, into the future, past the 10-year enrollment projection, and here's what we think is probably the next wave, right? And so we owe the board the ability to say, this was the expectation, that when we outgrow this recommendation, this is where we head, right? So I still think there's value in having the conversation today, but I do appreciate that right now we don't have sight for a new high school. Okay?
Yeah, I just thought that was important as we evaluate the options, because people could say you're spinning wheels on like, oh, we'll build a new high school right next to this, let's build a junior high. But that's not really an option. Therefore, we are gonna need new facilities if that, like athletics and everything else, right?
Potentially.
So I just thought that was a fair point to.
Yep, I appreciate it. Okay, all right, we'll get started with this exercise. I want staff, everybody, you're all going to participate in this one, okay? So what I'd like to do is, we've got 5 stations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to break up. So what I need everybody, so if you're a community member, okay? And by community member, I would say I don't have kids in the district. I'm just here as a community member. My kids have already moved through the district, okay? If you can raise your hand for that, please. Okay, we've got a few. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, remember your numbers, because you're going to move to those tables. You're a 5. You're a 5. Okay, if you're a parent, you got kids in the district. If you're a teacher with kids, I want you to be a teacher. If you're a parent, you're a parent. Okay? All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. Everybody good? Okay. You're a staff member, administrator or teacher. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 5. 4, 5. 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. 1. Over top though. 1, 2, 1. What are you? 2, 3. Go 3. Anybody else? Did I miss anybody? Yes, okay. So don't forget your number. 1's over here. 2's over here. 3's over here. I'm the
This is like when they split you up at basketball games.
Exactly. All right. Here's your welcome All right, so big reveal. I know, right? Don't make me do the teacher class thing. All right. So here's the exercise. Okay. You have 2 master plan options. You have 2 master plan options. This exercise called this or that. Pretty self-explanatory, you would think. But hang on. So here's the thing. These 2 master plan options that you have, in some way, they're connected, right? There's something about them that is similar. It's either, it might be K6, it might be 7-12 is similar in the way that they're organized, except for one group. One group's got 2 master plan options that are not great, but we'll talk about that. So here's the issue. What I want you to do is, I want you to look at your 2 master plan options, and I want you to evaluate them and effectively list 3 weaknesses, 3 strengths of both master plan options. And the reason we're doing that is that you're going to select one to get into more detail on. You're going to select one that is the one that you're going to present to the rest of the group. Okay? So I need you to pick a spokesperson at your table, but I want you to look at the 2 master plan options and think about both of them and what their relationship is. Now, what's on your sheet? At the top of your sheet, obviously, is this graphic that you've seen of all the master plan options, right? It's a descriptor of how the grades would be broken up and what facilities would be new or renovated or added on to. You're also going to see below that, you're going to see cost, and you're also going to see a line item for co-funded credit, right? We've talked about the fact that we're still working with commission in this phase, and our co-funded credit is going to be based on master plan option A1. So whatever that is, $14.5 million is what we're expecting to get back from the commission, and that is the minimum we will get back, assuming that our enrollment continues to climb. The rest of what you're going to see are recommended LFIs and optional LFIs. The recommended LFIs, inflation protection. We're using 2024 costs right now, which are good for about 12 to 18 months. When we move forward to May of next year, we're going to have to update those to 2025. So we're going to have some inflation protection in there. We're protecting you for about 5% because that's what we're expecting the costing to increase. There's also a second category called material and systems upgrades. When we work with the Ohio School Facility Commission, when we get a design manual from them that's like 6 inches thick, right? And inside of that are all kinds of different good, better, and best materials for everything: flooring, ceiling, lighting, HVAC. It is our experience that if we don't bake in some money to allow you to make some decisions, you won't get to make any decisions. You're just going to get good. You're never going to get better or best for anything that you want. So a great example, I walk into a classroom and it's all VCT. And we've watched our custodians for years go in, strip all the wax off the VCT, lay down 3 or 4 coats, move all the furniture into the hallway and back into the classroom and spend their entire summer trying to keep up with that, right? There are all kinds of flooring materials that don't require that, right? There's rubber tile, there's linoleum, but they come at a cost, right? So we might start at $5 a square foot, $7 a square foot, $10 a square foot. If we don't bake in some money in this process, you're never going to even be able to make that decision. That decision is going to be made for you because that's all you're going to be able to afford. Likewise, Jonathan Alder has buildings that are over and above what I would typically see from a just baseline OSDM project, meaning brick on the exterior, lots of windows, nice glass entries, sloped roofs, all of that stuff, just like Plain City Elementary, which is your newest construction. I won't be able to give you all that quality if we don't make sure that we bake in some money to do that, okay? There's also a category for some questions. If I knew that there were just some high-level questions that I needed you to address, I added those on there. And then the last piece is there should be some thumbnail site graphics there that give you an understanding of sort of what we're thinking about. So when I talk about putting an addition, so 2 things. A couple of your groups have the possibility for additions to Plain City Elementary, right? We went back in and took a look at the drawings, and just like I've told this group before, every OFCC project we anticipate some growth, right? So there would be the ability to add on. Plain City Elementary, you actually bought 4 of the classrooms, they're the ones that are closest to the street, and there was a plan for 4 more classrooms that would go on the playground side. So there is the possibility of growth there. Same with Canaan, same with Monroe. There's a little bit of growth that's available at all those buildings. So what I want to do, group number 1, what master plan options did you guys get?
F2 and F1.
Okay, F2 and F1. I was trying to come up with really great names for all these, but I really couldn't. So F1 and F2. F1 looks at a new elementary school. This is a new concept for this group because it wasn't a master plan that was up on the walls last time. So this would be the potential using our Darby Station site. Okay, it also includes obviously additions to to Canaan and to the high school. F2, you'll see the variation. Notice that nothing changes 712, but for F2 we talk about doing a new intermediate school. So I had no great, there's no great name for this one. I don't know what to call this one. What's group 2? What'd you get?
C2 and B.
C2 and D.
Okay. You guys got what I like to call the poo-poo platter. So here's what I'd like you guys to do. For this group, I would really like you guys to spend about 10-15 minutes talking about why those 2 plans are bad. get it on the page, and then I want you guys to break up and go out to other groups, whoever you want to move to, okay? Because those were the poo-poo platters. Part of the reason that we did these, I needed to get them on the page, okay? There were some things that were part of those master plans that were discussed at the last meeting that were post-it notes from folks that said, hey, I'd really like to see this, I'd like to see this. They came out the way that they came out, and what I'll tell the rest of the group, the reason that these are not good master plan options, one of them breaks up, hang on a second, D breaks up 9th grade from 12th, right? So it pulls the freshmen down in order to get a new middle school, in order to get capacity at the high school. That's not the greatest option, and we discussed that. And C2 takes 8th grade up and leaves them away from 6 and 7. Again, not the great option. But what it does do is it allowed us to at least look at what it would take in order to get an elementary school out at Darby Station in conjunction with the other elementary school buildings. So the part of what I want you guys to do is go ahead and poo-poo platter the 8th grade and the 9th grade. But I want you to look at that K5, right? Because that K5 solution is one that maybe makes sense for one of the other master plans. And so we may do a little cut and paste, right, as an exercise. Group number 3, what'd you guys get?
A1 and A2.
A1 and A2. Oh, okay, good. All right, so A1, A2, we all know what this is, right? A1's the base master plan from OFCC. This is the bare minimum of what it will take in order to satisfy the OFCC program, and it's the bare minimum from a capacity standpoint that meets the 10-year projection. A2, I like to call it Oprah Winfrey. You get an addition. You get an addition. You get an addition. Everybody gets an addition. So take a look at that one. Tell me what's good about it. Tell me what's bad about it. Okay. Group number 4. What'd you guys get?
E1, E2.
E1 and E2. Ooh, I like E1 and E2. Those are kind of fun. So again, new high school options, right? I want you guys to take a look at those. And again, we understand that right now the high school may be off of the table for phase 1, but I think it's important to discuss it. And also, again, I want you to look at grades 8 down to K, right? There are some things that are happening as part of 8 down to K that I think we needed to kind of discuss, right? So this is one of the master plan options, again, that looks at the possibility of Canaan going to an elementary and creating 3 elementaries of our existing buildings. So that's something I definitely want to hear you guys discuss to the rest of the teams. And with this one, obviously, the possibility maybe of the future of the high school becoming a new middle school and a new high school being built, right? So I think that's a concept that we need to discuss that might be a future recommendation later. All right, group 5, what'd you guys get?
B and C1.
B and C1. These are interesting. These are interesting ones. New middle school, 6, 7, 8, right, in both plans. So B and C1, sorry, jumping around. B and C1, keep the middle school, new middle school 6, 7, 8 concept in addition to the high school, and then change up what happens at the elementary school grades. So you guys, you guys have a heavy burden because these are, I think, very strong master plans, and I think you need to be able to tell us why. And you need to decide between the 2 of them of which one you think works better. Okay? So again, the plan for this, you guys are going to talk through these. You're going to beat them up. You're going to come up with 3 strengths, 3 weaknesses for both plans. And again, let's not lose sight of all the stuff we've talked about, right? We talked about our educational visioning goals, right? They're listed here. How is this going to line up with the descriptors that we use as far as how we want to be described as a community, and what are your plans to prepare us best for the future?
Are we all concerned about what these options would lock us into for the next phase? Do we need to consider that as well?
No, decide what's on the page right now. Decide what's on the page, because I think that's going to be a long conversation for the next meeting.
Right.
Yeah, let's not lose sight of phase 1 for phase 2 right now. Okay, let's try and decide between the options that we got on the page what works best for us in the next 10 to 15 years. Okay, all right, go. Be fruitful. 5 until they have
writing
to.
that,
F2
Everything
also
positive.
becomes a problem really because as
Whichever is fine. You can write on them, you can do it on the post-it notes, whatever you'd like to do.
So I would go 4, 5, 6. I know that's not hard.
like that right there
That would be mine.
is going to be a tough sell on the public. Because that's what
Definitely.
people really cultivate. Now if you put another elementary school over it, because once you add another elementary school in the garbage station area, like now you get back in the growth.
10, 15, that's also bugging.
What happens for this location with this? No, but this year they're building a new one. I would assume on this site.
I'm truthful, I don't think they're very doctor.
No,
I'm just
I'm
pointing
just
out
wondering.
that
I haven't
that's
read this
going to be a problem really quick. And also having preschool through 6 is a problem. How do you have one school set up to treat that much age of children? And you get one new building.
I just think on a junior high
So,
not set up. Yeah, I can do but I don't think
the grade distribution is
Four breaking out from 5, 6.
they're not.
taking advanced courses. Now, because most teachers are adding the 4, 5, and the state is now allowing that for up to 5. And then that causes issues. That is, this is a different curriculum and instruction. There is no curriculum to go up to 6 and then stop at 5.
So you're like that now.
So we don't like the junior high, so we don't really like the elementary. We have to find some level. That one leaves a lot of options later.
And you said this was a positive if that location changes, because then you're not.
And the only other nice thing, the only other nice thing about this is this land's already optional. So like, that way.
I just want to pick my house up and move it out of a development. I love my house. I just don't like living in it. There. appreciate you doing that, but do you realize how many
Okay,
schools
we have a
last year?
Yeah, wait, mom's coming.
All right, a couple of things. So great conversation, guys, and I appreciate you going through the exercise, and I recognize that a lot of this has a tendency to raise more questions sometimes than it does answers. I feel confident that as we go through this exercise tonight, we are kind of going from 10, probably down to something like 4 tonight, which is great, because then we can strengthen those 4 as we move forward into the last meeting. Up on the screen right now. So this is, there were a couple of questions about capacities and how all that stuff was going to work. This is everything that you looked at tonight, right? All the different master plan options, all the costs. Obviously, the least expensive option was A1, right? That's the baseline master plan from the OFCC, which is just replacing the 7-8. And so you can take a look at that one, and we recognize that that one just doesn't have any capacity at the end of a 10-year projection, right? So every one of these other ones has a different sort of capacity in year 11. And so the question came up, well, what does that mean, right? It means we're going to get through our 10-year enrollment projection, and we're going to get further, right? And further might be 15 years, it might be 20 years, depending on what growth looks like after utilities go in and you see the next wave of development. We can't project that, we're just not going to know until it happens. But ultimately, as you look at this, our goal is to not be back to the voters in 10 years or less, right? And that's what this whole capacity issue is about. The thing that's kind of interesting is that the more expensive options don't necessarily equate directly to more capacity. Right? It has a lot to do with the configuration, right? A high school, building a high school is a lot more expensive than building an elementary school, right? And I think that makes sense when you think about sort of the spaces and the needs and all those kinds of things. So it doesn't necessarily equate that the least expensive option is going to be the one that ultimately is the one that provides us less capacity or more capacity just based on cost. So what I'd like to do, I would like to start with group number 1. Which I believe had F1 and F2. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a spokesperson for group number 1?
I think Karen was told I have to.
Come on up here. Stand up.
Oh,
stand up.
awesome.
Stand up.
Hey everyone.
This is about throwing
Nice
cards.
to meet you
Big
guys.
round of applause. All right. So, hang on one second. So you guys chose between the two options. You chose F1 as the option that you like. So F2 is up here. Tell us a few things about why F2 wasn't preferred.
So go back to the last slide you were on. So the one benefit of both of these is from a student to the slide with all the different points.
Yep.
So for F1 and F2, the one thing, and it sticks out here pretty clearly, is bang for the buck on capacity for students. But the problem with that, while it looks like you get a lot of capacity, it's, even though we picked this one, it's not really manageable capacity. Because what ends up happening in this model, F1, all the elementary schools become K through 6, which from all the teachers and all the administrators and probably all the parents agreed, pretty unmanageable and not ideal for any situation. So while yes, F1, yeah, right, that's what we picked. F1 gives you the most bang for the buck student-wise. It didn't really make sense, but that's the best part about it. The other nice thing about this is that the new elementary school positioned exists. We know where the land would go. We think that from a drawing of lines, this would be the most appeasing to voters because you wouldn't have to split people out. So when you think about where the growth is coming in the district, most people would be able to have their students closer to that elementary school as opposed to in F2, which has it. We know there would be some hurt feelings and it would be tough with the voters on, you would take someone, probably everyone on one side of 42 out to Monroe, which is a great school. Obviously, we have the principal at our 6, but people maybe don't want to move their students all the way over there. We had some pushback from this version that having people in a school that long, not only from a management standpoint being tough, but also it's mixing and matching and moving schools. There's benefits to that. While you don't want people moving constantly, that was one benefit. And the other the reason I think at the end of the day why we picked this one over F2 was scalability. We do think we'd have to go back to the voters, which would be a problem, and we all agreed this is probably about 5 years the conversation would have to start again, because you're not really solving any long-term plans. But, and we're not allowed to say what else we would do, we would take this and scale it, and then add, make probably some of your plans instead. So, we picked it, we don't love it. But we had to pick one of the two, and that's how we did it.
All right.
You guys have questions about our plan? I can give you all the weaknesses if you have any questions about weaknesses.
So, do we clap? Yes?
Oh, yeah.
So, are we comfortable getting rid of F2?
Yeah.
Yes? Everybody's comfortable with getting rid of F2? All right, so we're down from 10 to 9. Impressive. I think the comment that was made is a very valid one about what would this plan look like cut and pasted with some of the other plans in regards to solutions of 712. I think that's valuable, and it's something that we probably need to speak or think more about before the next meeting.
I think some of our members on that end drew it on the back of this, what they would do. So if you're asking for opinion, people have some idea what they would do in this plan.
The conversation about Canaan as a 7-8 building, or Canaan, again, trying to support 3 grades of Canaan, it's just a struggle. I looked at it a couple of different ways, dug into the plans a little bit more. The issue is, I feel like we could add students to Canaan if we put an addition onto it. I just don't feel like I can get a whole another grade in there. Every space that supports students, from student dining and kitchen and gymnasium and all the other spaces, I can't put little additions all the way around Canaan and trying to grow it to the south. It just isn't. It doesn't get us there. I can put the classroom spaces on it. I can't make all those other spaces support that additional stuff. So time's up because music's playing. All right, thank you, group number 1. Clap for group number 1. All right, group number 2 had the hardest.
Also known as the poo-poo platter.
So which one did you pick?
We picked C2 as our option.
Awesome, but I noticed that so D's gone, right?
D's gone.
Okay, tell us why D didn't work out.
Oh man.
Where do I stop?
Yeah. D was wild because there's more transitions, but also that middle school breakdown for capacity was huge. Right, the 6, 7, 8, and 9. That's a borderline ridiculous spread. And my kid's in 6th grade, he's goofy as hell. And so to mix him with 8 and 9 is just like seriously. Well, 7, 8, and 9 even is just wild right now. We're going through a lot of things with that. So D's just brutal. The other really negative thing about that, if you go back, was the capacity at the high school. Right, it's just underutilized. Right, it just doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense. And we also know that the high school, frankly, needs a bunch of upgrades with certain facilities and different things like that. We just don't have the room to do that, right?
Yep. Okay.
So
D poo-poo platter.
D's terrible.
All right.
So is C2 though. Right? Welcome to this world. One of the positives of C2 though, and I think Mrs. Manbeck brought it up when we were arguing about 8th grade going up to the high school potentially, was like, we've got a lot of 8th graders that are already taking advanced classes and things, and so there are some benefits, and we got a lot of 12th graders that are out of the school for half a day sometimes, and those types of, so capacity changes probably a little bit here and can accommodate some of that higher education fluctuation, whatever you want to call that. But the new elementary school we talked a lot about too. Like this option is better, but putting the new elementary school in that neighborhood and where you draw the line between, the new elementary school versus the Plain City Elementary School, et cetera, is still kind of a tough discussion, but the K through 5 makes sense from a certification credentialing perspective from that angle. The other thing that we liked about C2 is it's 2/3 the cost of option D, right? So if we're just looking at it as a fiscally responsible group of individuals, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. To go that route, but we still didn't like it, and like Sonia mentioned, we like to spend money. So,
okay, all right, clap. I knew one of the groups was going to get the worst. Right? Please, questions for group 2.
Well, actually, with both of the first two groups, talk about a new elementary school.
Yeah.
Is that the one on the land already set aside, or is that on this site?
It's a good question.
And
Yeah.
if you did build
Yeah.
in the set aside, what happens to this site?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think our initial thought is that we take advantage of Darby Station, right? I mean, we know that the growth in the district is going to be to the northeast, and so ultimately, as we were thinking about a new elementary school, it was going out to Darby Station, and I think that's what your thumbnails are going to show.
When we thought about it, that's where we put it, and that's why we thought we'd have to go back to the voters, because we thought we would shift Caden down and have to do Slam's Middle School in the future anyways. That's exactly what we were thinking. Now, we weren't allowed to, though, you kept telling us.
But we have other options. Is everyone comfortable with taking D off the table? Yes? Yes, yes, yes.
Is the one
Okay.
part in red on this campus, or what if it was on the high school campus?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Look at 6 through 12 on the high school campus.
That's a big addition. It's a big addition.
Cafeteria's not big enough. Kitchen's not big enough.
Yeah, it is all the same issues of what we talked about with Canaan, right?
Like if you just put the buildings together and kind of made a
I don't think
6 through 12 campus.
I don't think there's enough land to do it right now.
I don't know that details.
If we were going to add, effectively, what is it's like 100,000 square feet that we'd have to add to the high school. It's a lot. It's a lot. I don't think that the land's not there to support it.
What's your existing high school?
We can go back to that graphic. Oh, hang on 1 second. 1 second.
Because you're really adding 7 through 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, 3 grades, and so ultimately the high school right now is 129,000 square feet, and if we're building a new, the square footage should be on the master plan. Who's got this one? Who's got B? Anybody? Somebody's got B. Yeah. What's the? You said no. What's the description say as far as the square footage should be?
Under cost.
Yeah. Under the description, you see it?
115,000,
Yeah.
116,000.
We'd have to add 115,000 to the 130,000 square foot high school. There's just not enough land.
115,000?
Some of that would be redundant, and you could do it with some, not adding all of it.
So 2.5 acres of building?
I don't think we'd be able to, what would we be able to reuse?
It's already.
I'm just saying, trying to get your 7 and 8 sports and your 9, 10, 11, 12 sports.
Sure. Well, they're already
On the
there.
same campus.
They're already there. Sorry.
7 and 8.
7 and 8 are already using the high school.
I'm right, but they're on the same campus. I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
shifted it all there. You have
Yeah, it's a good conversation to have. All right, so anything more for group 2? No? All right, group 3, what do we have?
Tim.
Hi, Tim. Woo!
Reset.
All right, so group 3 had A1, which was the co-funded base master plan of just replacing the 7-8,
Yeah.
and then A2, which is the Oprah Winfrey.
You want the negative on A1?
Yeah, I'd love it, please.
Well, we thought the pros were the cost. It's the least expensive. But we're not really fixing capacity issues for any of the buildings, really. We're kind of replacing the junior high, which this building, we all agree, should be replaced. The water alone is not.
I was raised on it.
And you can't use the stadium, except unless you bring in lawn chairs. You can use the grass, but that's about it. The light poles are gonna fall down and the stadium is down. And how long would this fix work? It was like, how quickly are we gonna have to come back and ask for more money, even though it's cheaper now? So, come back in 3, 4, 5 years and say, well, okay, thank you for your levy, but we need more now. So, there's our negatives.
Okay.
Now, getting to the pros of this, in our opinion, is a longer term option. Especially when we learn if we could repurpose, so this is one of the questions on this, was repurpose or demolish this building? If we can preserve some of this building and repurpose it for the administration and the preschools, right? take that capacity out of our elementaries and the high school. We add one classroom at least each to the elementaries, and I don't know, how many would we add to the high school? If we,
Three.
Well, the high school's already factored in.
that's already factored in.
It's included in the capacity, but I agree with you.
Okay.
The district office has gotta go somewhere.
Right.
Right.
We take district office, preschools out of those schools, then we're adding in, and we were told you add in one more space on the elementary. So that, I mean, that to us is for the value too. So we're talking about a middle of the road cost. So the range was 27 million to 68 million. This one is 46 million. So you're right in the middle. So for that, the capacity value that we're adding into this plan and getting a new junior high school, and in that, and then I'll exempt any board members that were on our group. But this was an asterisk. Long-term future adjustments, meaning if we do it this plan with the cost that we're asking now, down the road to ask for more costs to make more adjustments seems to make more sense, right? I guess part of it was the negative. How soon will we have to go to the back of the community for more? So we're not asking for the little bit that we know we're going to ask for more. We're not asking for the golden ticket at 68 million that might take care of us for a lot longer. Like how soon, because of the growth we know that's happening with that. Like we were talking, another guy in our group was from Hilliard, back in the old Hilliard days. The explosion happened, and it had to happen, and it had to be supported, and it was supported. You can say what you want about Hilliard now, but back in the 80s and 90s when I was there, it happened, and the community supported it well. But, and then the other negative is, are these additions enough for what we're asking for? Right? We kind of thought from the options, it's pretty good. Pretty good request for the value of the capacity that we're adding with it. So, that's my pitch on day 2. Woo!
Questions for Group 3?
The only thing,
They had a ringer.
I guess the only question was, or comment, if this is repurposed, that's a $14 million LFI versus demo, which is $800,000 LFI.
Well,
That
so-
has to be added in the cost.
Well, the 14 million would be for the entire building, and so
Okay.
some
10
significant.
million then.
Well, I mean, I don't know what,
Yeah.
I don't know what the number is, but yeah, you're right, there would be costs. with
That would have to be
keeping
taken into account, that's what I'm
it.
saying.
Sure.
The one thing that I liked about A2 as I was working through it in my brain is this plan sets us up very well for a future elementary at Darby Station, right? So if you think about it, you know, we are gaining capacity, bigger capacity at these buildings. The reason that there's only a 2 classroom addition in Monroe and a 4 classroom addition at Plain City is because that's about all we can do. When we start getting bigger than that, I'm starting to run into more costs because I'm doing something. I'm either building over utilities or I'm building into parking lots or those kinds of things. So I know very easily that I can get 4 classrooms onto Plain City and 2 onto Monroe. When I get bigger than that, then I start to develop more costs. But, you know, we're only developing a little bit of capacity down here. We're pulling the grade out, right? But we're developing a little bit of capacity here, and then it ultimately would set us up for that 3rd elementary in the future. So it's not a bad plan, at least as a starting point. The one thing I don't like is we do touch every building. That's a pain in the rump, right? We're doing little additions at every one of the buildings, so it's going to, from a premium standpoint, it's going to cost, right? It's going to be expensive. But it's not a bad starting point. It's definitely one that I
What did you say about pulling a grade out?
we would be pulling 5th grade out of these buildings, right?
It's already.
No, you're right, I'm sorry. They already are at Canaan. I'm sorry, that's not correct. Yep. No, sorry.
What kind of-
Because we're already capacity there.
Keeps the grade structure, so.
Yeah.
What kind of a mobilization premium are you paying?
Hard to say.
on that 45 million, how much are you wasting? If you got an idea, just roughly.
It's probably a 10%, 15% per year.
4.5 million.
Probably.
And then you'd have to go back to the voters for the new elementary.
Right. But
We brought up a point about that though, is with the growth of the district, who are you bringing in? You're bringing in people that 10 years from now are more than likely to support the addition of a new elementary school, as opposed to going back in 3 or 4 years when they're like, hey, weren't you guys just here? So,
Yeah.
it's the right kind of growth.
People are moving out here for a reason,
Mhm.
whether it's the schools, the community, or location. They're gonna be motivated to support the place they just bought. And that's where we were saying, like, this gives us an option down the road to ask for more.
Agreed. Agreed. All right, are we all comfortable with taking A1 off the table?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, we all agree that that's not the way we want to go. Okay, awesome. All right, final indecision group 4.
Here.
Okay, all right, awesome.
So both of our sheets are up because we couldn't decide between the two for a variety of reasons. The biggest commonality between the two are they're the most expensive options. Both of them build a new high school, and so obviously that makes them the most expensive options, plus all of the facilities. The other negative is, as it stands now, we don't have the physical land for building the new high school, so that kind of pushed both plans kind of to the side. So we started to look further down in the grade bands. The elementaries are configured just a little different. This one has 3 turning Canaan into an elementary, and this one just keeps the 2. And so we started thinking about redistricting lines and where those would draw, and does the community value having neighborhood elementaries where do I want to be able to walk to an elementary, or am I going to be closer to Plain City but I'm going to have to be bused somewhere else, those type of things. So that's what we kind of talked about there, but then we also said it helps with the geographic location of elementaries too. So where's the growth occurring, and we're going to be more spread out. The only problem with this one is 86% capacity, where the elementaries would be at 80% in this one. This one has elementaries pre-K to 3, and this one had pre-K to 5. And then this one, similar to what you all said down there about having 2 elementaries, this allows for the new elementary to be built at Derby Station for phase 2. We talked about on both of them removing preschool from the elementaries, and we talked about using the downtown West Main site for this option here, the new district office, and then 6 new classrooms with a preschool gym. And it was about $10 million as comparative to this renovation and things here. Again, what do we do on this site? But we were thinking the high school's not an option anyway. This one had more transitions, and that was kind of hit with mixed reviews. I'm of the opinion that kids transition and change way easier than adults do, so it would probably be harder on the parents than the kids. But this one had fewer transitions. Meaning if you've got kids several grade bands, you don't have kids in 4 schools, maybe only one in 3. Trying to think what else. This one had the 9-12 together, 9-12 together. This one had 6-7-8 together, 6-7-8. This is the one that just had the 4-5 separate. So we didn't really like either, because they're the most expensive, and the high school option to build a new high school really at this point isn't feasible because of the land. But that's about it.
Could we build a new high school here?
50 acres.
Not with the stadium.
Or not why this building is here.
Right.
Well, but you could build, if you build it there, then put high schoolers there, and then move the high schoolers to the entire, no.
It's
not big enough.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna, from everything that we need to have happen, full student parking and all that kind of stuff, I don't think you're gonna be happy with what a site looks like. The building's gonna take up so much of the land.
We did talk about though, if it made sense, like we were able to get and acquire the land around the current high school, that learning what we did when we built the previous high school and thinking about the facilities and the auditorium and everything like that, that a new high school, is appealing, but it, we just don't have land for it. So, we put both of them up. You can take both down, I don't know.
All right, any questions for group 4? Is there anything that we see in any of these other options that
Does
us down the path?
does E1's price tag come with the land, or do you have to purchase land on top of that?
On top of it. Yeah, it's one of our LFIs down here. This is a co-funded dollar, right? So the state's not gonna help you pay for land. So. Should say take both of them down? All right, please. Yes, question in the back.
I just want to say that I really did like these options. I really like the idea.
I really do if there's a possibility.
Right, I mean, right, so if we, the high school right now could serve very well as a junior high. But there's a lot of things we can do better at a high school to really serve as a high school. So don't discount it just because it's the most expensive. That's what I feel like.
But I think it's
And don't tell us treasurer that I'm having this conversation.
Yeah, it's not on our
So the question was asked, how much land do we need? We need a minimum of 35 acres. Okay. And that's kind of
35?
35. Yeah, that's kind of on the order of not replacing the stadium, honestly. I mean, we can get the building, the parking, all the drives, everything that's necessary. If you're replacing the stadium, it should probably go up higher. Oh, I don't know how big that lot is. Does anybody know? Mark, did you know off the top of your head how much acreage you have at the high school now?
Off the top of my head.
Okay.
It's 42.86.
Yeah.
But Jim said that we have 50 acres on this total, but the auditor site doesn't show that. It's like 26 acres where? It's 26.24.
This is 26 and a half, right?
Behind.
It's inclusive of that, yeah.
I feel like there's less acreage here.
I thought we talked about this, it was 50 acres.
Here?
Got what?
I thought about this is 50 acres.
Yeah, 25 and.
What was that?
There's 2 parcels.
So there's 2 parcels.
Okay, so we need to talk about what we're doing with D1 and E2. What are we doing with them? Is there, so I've got a motion on the floor to keep E1 and lose E2. What are the thoughts?
I keep both. Get rid of both of these. Get rid of both bars and keep both of those.
Even though it's got Kansas Elementary, you got that.
Here's the option.
Yeah, the challenge is, the question is, so the question's out there, but can we just buy land someplace else and put a high school on it? Yeah, we can, right, that's a possibility. As soon as we do that though, recognize that there are cost impacts to doing it, right? So not only do we need the 35 acres to put a new high school on, if we're not buying enough acreage to put a new stadium on, and we don't want to pay the $12 million for a new stadium, then we're busing the kids to the old high school site, right? So depending on what that looks like, we now have added at least a loop of transportation costs. Okay? So there are impacts to that we need to think about that we're not getting into the weeds on tonight, right? But ultimately, I'm okay with keeping both of them out there if we need to. But I do think, we've talked about this relationship and this relationship in other master plan actions, right? We've discussed that in a couple of different configurations. Is one of the 2 of these more successful from K-5 that we feel like we want to keep that and move forward with it? I'm seeing one. Can I get a vote?
Well, hold on. Can I ask you a question before we do that?
Yeah.
The finance committee met. Can you give us an understanding of what that costs? The average
millage? Yeah, I'll do that at the end. We're not doing that right now.
Well, but yeah, I mean, my decision of whether to do this, is it going to cost me $200 per 100,000 or $800?
I want to do that at the end though, because if we do that, we're going to color all the other conversations for the rest of the time. I do want to talk about that. It's going to be the last thing we talk about. But I don't want to talk about millage right now. I want to do it at the end. Please. No. Question?
If we like both of these and we don't like CQ, We keep both of those in Route 6.
Hey,
Yes.
easy.
It's making the job harder. It's making the job harder. We really need to see you anyway. You're not really helping. All right, we'll keep E1 and E2 together, okay? We'll keep them together. We'll discuss them again at the next meeting. Can we get to group 5? I don't want to keep everybody here all night. So group 5, clap for group 4, please. So group 5, what do we have? We have B and opposed to no, cover top of the.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we kept C1.
Yes.
All right. So why did we lose B? What do we not like about B?
We actually, prefacing it though, we kind of sort of wanted to combine them because of the configuration of Canaan there. We kept it preschool through grade 5 here, and we did an addition to Plain City. What does the capacity look like here? That would also change this price though to that price, presumably. So it's essentially, we found them very similar. Mixed reactions on numbers of transitions between the grades. Again, parents, someone's like multiple, other parents don't. That's kind of like a potential negative for redistricting in general is Title I funding. So Monroe is a Title I school. So if we redistrict the lines, how we do that, since that's Title I, and is that a question even for this room or? So keeping that in mind. Curriculum aligns with all the credentials and this. To answer this question, we would demolish this building simply because we think financially it makes more sense to demolish it and build something we would use for it. The question did come up though for community standpoint, if they would have nostalgia for this building and if they would be against that.
The Poo Platter team feels that that's not an issue.
Let's see, the con of this one is solved with the capacity issue when we realized that it would be this because this one is at 86% capacity. That's out of an addition. If you add an addition, would that bring the capacity down further? Look at our numbers and see. I feel like that's not middle school having to have the athletic facilities with cost. And then Ms. Chris Waka was wondering too. You're gonna come up with you. If we would have K through 5, Monroe, Canaan, and a new elementary. We didn't know if we could make Plain City a middle school, 1 with capacity, 2 with athletics, if there would be enough space or not. Because the question came up again too, where in your district, where those students are coming from, both geographically and demographically, making sure that you have students have the opportunity to read.
So I'm sorry, say that again. That master plan option. So Plain City Elementary becomes a middle school?
Yes. So yes, Plain City would become the middle school, Canaan would be an elementary, and we'd build a new elementary. But that would, you would need athletic purposes for
yeah. Yeah, I don't like it from a transportation standpoint, but from a capacity standpoint, Plain City, it isn't well suited to be a middle school. It doesn't, it doesn't have some of the stuff that we would need for 6, 7, 8, right? It doesn't have labs, and it doesn't have, the gym's not the right size. Yeah, we just heard that. Yeah, it's an interesting master plan option. I think it's a challenge.
I think so too. We like this one most, and several of us have liked this from the very beginning.
So I'm back to another question that we still have failed to answer, which is the concept of Canaan becoming an elementary school. To make 3, or option B, which was Monroe and Plain City being elementary schools and setting us up for the future Darby Station Elementary. I'm back to that, but I'm still challenged by that, and I don't know that we've answered the question.
Did that makeup include redistricting for Monroe?
Well, yeah, it's going to.
Did
But
any of these two elementary schools include redistricting this shift?
let's just, for the sake of argument, say that redistricting is going to be an issue with all of them. Because it's going to. The line between Plain City and Monroe is going to move. It's going to move no matter what. Because something's going to happen. We put a building at Darby Station, the line's going to move further south of Plain City. If we don't build that elementary, then something's going to have to happen between Monroe and Plain City. So it's going to go.
So with this option B though, you're dropping a grade, right? So that line doesn't move nearly as far.
Kids from Darby State, Darby Field.
I'm struggling here. I'm struggling between B and C.
Because it's a percentage.
Just thinking about
what does it look like? What does it look like when you? What does it look like when you reach out to get a new elementary school? If you did have if Keenan was an elementary school, but then we decided to do another elementary and switch Keenan back to an intermediate. I mean, that's probably what would happen, right? If that was the scenario. Or how would that work?
That's a possibility. Yeah. That
Yeah,
is
we were
possible.
wondering if they're the same, as this would be not having change your capacity.
All right. So the question for the group is: are we okay with getting rid of option B?
No.
You're going the wrong direction.
You can get rid of C2.
C2's already.
You're at F1 too.
You're not selling.
Hey, honestly, like I don't see any way Keenan becomes a middle, like a 7-8 building for us. Like I think that's way too much.
One thing that hasn't been brought up is this only impacts certain people in the district. This one and C2 will only impact certain people.
Sure.
So, from a voting standpoint.
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
We're kind of in the same thing here.
Yeah.
Like we're in the same boat here with the new elementary and Keenan just does not. Like I just don't see it becoming a 7.
K through 6 is not an option.
Okay. Here's what I want to do.
Labs, facilities. I mean, just in general, it's gonna.
I want to keep 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for next time. I want to keep all 6 of these. And we're gonna push harder at the beginning of the meeting next time. Okay. I agree with everybody that F1's probably, again, looking across here, F1 is probably the weakest of the master plan options up here. But what F1 starts to talk to us about is that Darby Station Elementary, right? And so it starts to talk to us about what the capacities look like. And so when we discuss, and I like this idea of, well, what happens if, we go here and ultimately our growth starts to happen in our elementary schools and we put a Darby Station here and then Canaan goes back to, a 4-5 intermediate. I think that that's a possibility that allows for that future growth. And so I don't want to lose this guy any more than I really want to lose that guy because I think it's the same thing. I think that option is 2 stages. Yeah, it's a 2-stage effectively. So I don't want to lose those yet. We'll talk about whether or not we, it might be that we axe F1 at the beginning of the next meeting and that we, shelve E1 and E2 as potentially future master plans, but I don't want to get rid of them. Is everybody okay with that strategy? Yep. Okay.
We have to come with 1 by the end of next meeting, though?
Yep, that's exactly right. And we will.
I love your confidence.
We'll get there. Hey, I walked in, I told this story before, I walked into Indian Creek on Thursday night with 62 master plan options and walked out with 1. So I'm confident we can get it.
In 2 hours?
Yeah. 2.5.
Okay.
I gave everybody a Sharpie. That's exactly what I did. So Bill was asking a question. So before we leave tonight, Bill was asking a very important question, one that I think there's a lot of value in. And the reason that I asked him to table it for the time being is that I don't want to color your thoughts just on money, right? This conversation needs to be, again, we talk about educationally fantastic. Part of that is making sure we get the right configuration and what allows our students to be successful in the future. As soon as I start showing you these, you start thinking about millage, and you start thinking about the cost of any of these options for a $100,000 home. And so as you look at this, so before we came in here tonight, option A and option D were our two most expensive options, in rough numbers, okay? The numbers have shifted a little bit, just with some ups and downs of things that we look at. So option A, the $27 million base master plan cost is 2.15 mils, and that's roughly about $75 and a quarter a year for $100,000 worth of home value.
Is that based on your 100% or your 35% reduction?
That is based on your valuation, which is 35% of your home value. Yeah. And D is $66.8 million base master plan cost. It's 5.31 mils, and it's $185.85. So everything that we've talked about right now, be careful before we go down this rabbit hole. We also haven't layered in all those LFIs, right? So we haven't added in a new district office, whatever that configuration might be, if it's at 340 West Main or it's built as an addition to one of the other options, whatever that is, there's cost there. We haven't upgraded the middle school stadium if we're staying here. We haven't bought land if we're building a new high school. We haven't done all of those things. So this is just off your base master plan costs, right? So just take it all in, drink it all in. Okay, I really, really appreciate your time. I really appreciate everybody coming back. I really would appreciate seeing you in December. Remember our points of contact. If you guys have any questions, send them to Jim. Jim will get them to us, right? And we'll try and get this presentation up on the website hopefully tomorrow.
Hey, Josh, thank you so much. Well, guys, I can't thank you enough. Just sitting here and listening to these conversations, the commitment, and how devoted you are to this district in the future. It gave me chills at sometimes listening to the conversations. If you can get to one option next month, the board wants to listen. They're going to approve the option that this group thinks is best for this district. And once the board approves it, I'm going to see it through. I'm going to get it done with the help of Josh and all of you. So thank you for tonight. And I didn't hear what we're supposed to do for next month. I'm sorry. We were making deals over here.
December 5th is our next meeting, 6 p.m. and we're at the high school.
Everyone come
and we forgot to give a clap to Group 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.